Hi, this is Dr. Jim Porter. I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I practice in Gainesville, Florida. If you can get yourself here, I would love to help you out. So today I'm going to talk about meditation. And I don't know if anybody talks about it in the way I do. I will probably even guide one, but I'm going to use a lot of descriptors, and some of them are going to possibly sound spiritual. Some of them might sound like mental health terminology, and some of it might sound like neurological terminology because of the different perspectives people have. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go right on into it now, and we'll do maybe about 10 minutes. So, the first thing I ask people to do is go ahead and pay attention to the breath. It's kind of important that you're sitting or laying in a position that doesn't restrict your breath. I'm leaning forward toward the camera, but you may want to be sitting up straight, kneeling, sitting on a couple of yoga blocks, sitting in a chair, laying down. And you don't necessarily want to fall asleep during this experience, but you can. That's up to you. So even as I talk to you, I'm trying to do what I'm saying to do. Paying attention to your breath as it goes in and as it comes back out. As you breathe in, notice the sensations and sounds that go with your breath. You might feel your tummy moving. You might feel your chest rising and falling. You might feel your side ribs under your arms moving outward, sideways outward, and back inward. So I'm going to go ahead and say that focus and attention and consciousness and observing is what meditation is. Now, this meditation is intended to wrap up together in a nice bundle what a lot of the processes are that are causing continuation of mental health problems, life dissatisfaction, mood issues, relationship issues, drug issues, impulsivity issues, and those sort of things. Because right now, you're attempting to pay attention to one of your bodily processes, your breathing. And I'm going to say that there is an observer within you. That may be your core self. It may be your soul. It may be the prefrontal cortex. It may be the frontal lobe. It may be the neocortex in general. And now scientists are talking about different brain regions that resonate. They interact by alternately turning off and on in relationship to each other. And somehow that either creates consciousness, or I like to say, it mediates consciousness. But you are the observer. You're taking the observer posture. You're taking the observer stance. The observer can observe, look at, attend to, pay attention to, watch, listen to, smell, taste, hear the outside world outside of your body. But if you notice, it can also observe you, your sensations on your skin, the inner touch, feeling sensations in your body, whether your stomach is gurgling or not, whether your nostrils get cool when air comes into them and whether they warm up when air exits them. So you can notice so many physical sensations depending on how awake your sensory apparatus is. Do not worry if you can't do anything that I'm asking. Your sensory apparatus can shut down in many ways, and we call an involuntary shutdown of any part of the sensory apparatus or awareness apparatus, I guess, dissociation. Extreme forms of dissociation is flashback to the past events, not being able to realize that you're not there, but still here. Milder forms of dissociation are when your mind goes blank, when you can't think of something you were going to say, when you feel emotionally numb, when you seem to feel like your body isn't really there, you're not really in your body, you can't sense your body, you don't feel present within your body, an out-of-body experience. We call that depersonalization. Another dissociative phenomenon is when your environment doesn't appear real to you. You don't appear to be in your environment, but somehow separated, distanced from it in one way or another. We call that derealization. Try not to worry about those states too much, but more try to pay attention and sense whatever you can. If your eyes are open, you can look around your environment and notice the colors, the textures, how heavy something might be, what sounds you're hearing. But we're going to go into observing our internal life now. For example, the internal sensations, the way your muscles feel tight or relaxed, the way you can tell how your body is positioned without having to look at it, the way you might be able to feel if there is tension or relaxation in the back of your neck. So these are physiological sensations. And when we're talking about human beings and mental health, we're talking about emotion, we're talking about behavior, we're talking about relationships, we're talking about pain versus comfort versus pleasure. And we're talking about different systems. So we can imagine that there is a system that observes, that part of you that right now is observing whether your eyebrows are furrowed or not without even reaching up to touch them, whether your jaw is tight or loose. You're just doing that by observing your body. And then I'm going to talk about sensations and feelings as the same thing, the physical, physiological things you feel happening in your body right now. You may be able to sense your pulse. You may be able to feel or hear your heartbeat. Sometimes people can, sometimes people can't seem to help it. But next we're going to move, that is the sensory emotional area. We're going to move to the cognitive area. So this is the cognitive emotional area, and I'll explain why they both have the word emotional in them in a few seconds. But imagine, since I'm a male, I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. After I'm done with this, try to imagine what I'm saying to imagine. Try to imagine a female voice saying the word pop. Now, we can hear things in our heads. We can hear voices. We can recall sounds. Right now, you can probably imagine the sound of the rain, or a hamburger sizzling in a skillet, or the smell of smoke. or the taste of that hamburger in your mouth, or the taste of watermelon in your mouth, or the sensation of the juice from the watermelon dripping down your chin and getting on your neck. You might even be able to imagine the sensation of irritation. Go back to the breath at this point, paying attention to your breath in one way or another. So, without having a psychotic or schizophrenic type disorder, you can hear voices that aren't there. You can smell, taste, feel, and hear things that are not there. But they are in your cognitive experience. They're in your mind. Part of your mind produces these sensations and experiences without needing outside sensory motor input. You could probably see colors flashing in your mind if you like. So our mind thinks in words, visual text, auditory sounds of words. And what happens is we record a lot of these experiences growing up, and they replay in our minds. And we have something called the autonomic nervous system, the limbic system, the fight or flight system. We have the amygdala and other parts of neurology that often behave outside of our control. That's why the autonomic nervous system is called the autonomic nervous system, because it behaves as if autonomous. And there are situations in which that autonomous nervous system takes over your body and causes you to act on impulse. And that can be helpful when you're trying to escape from a burning building and don't have time to slow down and be the observer and deliberate and eventually consciously make a decision. Instead, the autonomic nervous system makes the decision in a rapid fire, knee-jerk fashion, and it acts for you. It takes control of your body. Most of our mental health problems are feelings that we wish we wouldn't have, our extreme distress, depression, discomfort, come from the fact that this part of us, the autonomic nervous system, has been trained by experience to take over when it shouldn't, to make thoughtless decisions for you, and hence you wonder why you do things you wish you wouldn't do, and why you don't do things you wish you should do, why you keep self-stopping, why you can't bring yourself to do something that you really know you want to do, that yesterday you were sure you're going to do, but upon waking up, you're seemingly incapable of getting past that inertia. The part of you that empowers you to make decisions despite what your autonomic nervous system wants to do is the observer self. This is the self that can exist and observe the here and now. It can observe all the rapid fire thinking to some degree that's going on within you. The reactive mind. Now, the reason I said the cognitive emotional part of you and the sensory emotional part of you is because some theories of emotion say that when you have body sensations and you observe them without interpretation, they may be comfortable, pleasurable, uncomfortable, or even painful. But what really creates the powerful emotional experience is that your reactive mind is constantly trying to interpret those sensations into some sort of meaning. So the same sort of sensations that your mind interprets sometimes as danger, it at other times interprets it as eagerness. It takes your emotions, your sensations, your feelings, and turns them into emotions by overlaying an explanation about them, an explanation about what they might mean about your external situation, interpretations about what they might mean about you, about your safety, your danger, your expectations for your future, your desires, your potential. The reactive mind, in many ways, is often unnecessarily overlaying interpretations on your sensations and turning them into more potent, believable, convincing emotional experiences, which then start to translate into sensory motor arousal, which means the concept of taking these emotions and turning them into urges to do something, urges to behave in a certain way. These urges can be conscious and they can be unconscious. You might raise your voice without knowing it. You know the classic phrase, someone is screaming that they are not screaming. And sometimes it puts ideas in our heads and we have a strong urge to act on them. Now, this system won't just decide not to act on them. Inasmuch as you are not acting on strong urges, you are operating from the observer self. But to give yourself a better chance to operate on conscious decisions more than on reactive, impulsive, unconscious urges, is to sit right now and watch your mental interpretations if you can. I'll be silent and see if you can notice that there are thoughts going through you. They may be sounds, they may be images, they may seem like words in your mind. They may seem to be like words in text form passing in front of your eyes. Imagine in front of your eyes how the word safety looks. Now, when I pause, imagine the word safety as it sounds. Say inside your head the word safety 2 or 3 times. This is happening without you trying all the time. One way to find catch those reactive thoughts that are constantly going through your constantly working reactive mind is to try to observe something else and notice what distracts you. So I'm going to ask you once again to pay attention to your breaths. Try as much as you can to continue to pay attention to your breath, but don't use hard effort, use soft effort, and I will be quiet for about 120 seconds. That's 2 minutes. Notice what distracts you from your breath over that time without judging it, and then see how gently you can go back to at least sharing some of that attention with your breath. Do not try to empty your mind. Do not try to make yourself not conscious of anything. Just try to gently choose to have some focus on your breath for 2 minutes and notice what distracts you without judging the concept that you have been distracted. I'm about to begin, and we begin now. Okay, that part of the silent meditation is over. Now, recall what that experience was like. Notice what it was like attending, observing your breath. Notice what it was like if you were able to catch other stimuli inside your body, outside of your body, in your mind, in your environment, popping up, maybe giving you some what you might call distraction, but it's actually awareness. It's actually awareness of what was calling your attention in your mind. That's one way to start getting used to being aware of all this activity that's going on inside you throughout your day that can affect the way you behave. Because if you're not paying attention to you, it can control you without you being conscious of it. But the more you pay attention to it, the more you will realize that you are creating most of the fears and worries and anxieties by this combination of taking bodily sensations, external cues, and just unconsciously allowing that reactive mind to interpret them for you and decide what they mean. Fear, the sensation of fear can be confused with the idea that there's an actual danger around, when oftentimes it is merely a set of sensations. The same sensations can be interpreted by the mind as eagerness, excitement, the strong desire to hang out with somebody, or even the strong sensation of desiring sex, are very similar physiologically. Physiologically, the urge to fight someone and hit someone and go at them and attack them in one way or another, even verbally, is very similar to a lot of the sensation involved in wanting to run away, to get the heck out of there. But sometimes these sensations are just arising and they mean nothing but that they are there. You could have an extremely rapid heart rate, an extremely high blood pressure, jitteriness, shivering, tightened muscles. And it actually means nothing but those physiological things are happening. And that is really common through your day. In addition, the cognitive events, the thoughts, the interpretations, the explanations, the beliefs swirling around in your head can cause those physiological sensations to happen, different physiological sensations to happen, feelings of pleasure. But it does not necessarily mean that something good is happening, that something bad is happening. So observing them starts to allow you to piece apart the cognitive versus the physiological sensory versus the behavioral physiology that seems to make you want to scratch your nose, call somebody, binge watch something. I want to talk about silencing the mind and not silencing the mind now, and then I'll try maybe a 2-minute exercise there too. I do not believe you should try to silence your mind. I believe that you will experience occasionally the silent mind in a healthy way. There is an unhealthy silent mind, and that is called dissociation. So one of the most important things to do in meditation, no matter who you are, is try to pay attention to sensations, thoughts, feelings, sounds, tastes, smells, and visuals inside of your mind and outside of your mind, in the room you're in. The more present you are, the more eventually you may or may not experience what seems like a more quiet mind, because you will be in the observer role. And the observer role, to me, in my experience, seems unobservable. So it is that which observes. There's some old Hindu texts, and I'm sure that every religion has something along this, but not what we see, but that by which we see. Not what we hear, but that by what we hear, by which we hear. That which we know, not that which we know, but that by which we know. I would say that's what people are talking about when they talk about capital S self, or your core, or your soul, that within which observes everything else. It's akin to the fact that you can't see yourself through your own eyes. You have to look into a mirror. You can't turn around fast enough to see you. And your fingertip can't really touch itself, but it's always touching itself. So maybe you can't observe your observer, but you can always be the observer. And maybe that's your essential self, or maybe, again, that's some part of your neurology. But that's what part also makes decisions, conscious decisions based on intentional observation, discernment, assessment, and then decision action. So what I'm going to do now is say, don't silence your mind. In this next exercise, guide yourself through trying to sense your feet, your legs, your midsection groin area, the part underneath your underwear, brief style underwear. Your midsection, meaning your stomach, your lower back, and everything in between. Your upper torso, which is your chest, ribs, your upper back, and everything in between. Then your arms, then your head. And just try talking to yourself internally, or maybe even out loud, if you're comfortable with that. Guiding yourself from your toes all the way up to your head in any way you want to. But give yourself verbal instruction, either audibly, out loud, using your real voice, or using your internal voice to give yourself instructions. Because when you are doing meditation, that is okay. Because you are using your conscious self to guide your attention, intentionally using words to do so. So, we are going to begin now. Okay, that's our 2 minutes. This video was intended to not only instruct and give some theory and concepts, but to use those to guide meditation practice. This video is also intended to guide you in a couple of meditations. You can even use the entire video as a meditation guide with your eyes closed, just paying attention to what I'm discussing. When I'm discussing a part of your mind, you can try to pay attention to that part of your mind, part of your body, or part of your environment, and see how your attention follows the instructions and explanations. Finally, there is more to this. The more you use guided, self-guided, and nearly unguided meditation, you discover more gifts, is one way of saying it. But what you're really doing is changing habits. You're deprogramming old habits of behavior, thought, and emotion. And you will notice the more you pay attention to feelings, the more you'll detangle some of the complications of the feeling and emotional habits that you were trained in growing up accidentally by the people in your environment. They were trying their best, but some of it is not functional at this point. And now you have the power to look at your emotions instead of running away from them. And that over time can start to create healing. The same with your mental activity, your internal urges, pains, and tensions, and relaxations, and also your actions, your behavior, and your interactions in relationship. Most of this has been mostly taken over throughout your life by that autonomic nervous system. It has piled up habits that worked or seemed to work. And what you want to do is start to behave more on the conscious decision-making level and observing level, and less on just allowing that autonomic nervous system to do what it's going to do. Over time, you will strengthen the neurology that's associated with observing and deciding. And although you may not ever be free of negative or uncomfortable emotions, they will not have the presence and power that they seem to have over your decisions and over your attention. So I do recommend watching videos like this several times, doing some study, but I would say spending a daily amount of time, 5 minutes or more, doing some conscious attending to yourself, even if you walk yourself through it verbally. This video is finally finished. Thank you.